The silence around this decision is louder than any royal press release. Because while Invictus Games officials are calling it a structural evolution, what actually happened is this: Prince Harry no longer holds the hosting role he once dominated, and for the first time since Invictus was founded, the organization is clearly signaling that the games are bigger than one man, even their founder. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Sources close to the games, veterans involved, and longtime observers all agree on one thing: this wasn't accidental, and it wasn't cosmetic. This was a deliberate shift. And if you've been watching Meghan Markle's reactions to perceived loss of control over shared platforms, then yes, the tension makes perfect sense. Invictus was Harry's crown jewel after leaving royal life. It was the one project nobody could accuse him of inheriting. He built it, fronted it, traveled with it, and emotionally tied his post-royal identity to it. But over the last 2 years, critics including veterans have raised concerns that the games were slowly turning into a celebrity-centric brand, rather than a veteran-centric one. Cameras followed Harry and Meghan more than competitors. Headlines focused on outfits, speeches, and optics rather than injured service members. And when an organization founded to honor sacrifice starts generating more press about personal branding, executives take notice. That's where the CEO decision comes in. Invictus leadership has been quietly professionalizing its structure, tightening governance, and crucially reducing reliance on symbolic figureheads. Harry still attends. He still supports. But hosting authority? That spotlight role? It's now clearly institutional, not personal. And that matters. Because in nonprofit leadership, this kind of shift usually happens when boards feel the mission is being overshadowed or when reputational risk enters the room. That's not gossip. That's standard organizational behavior. Now let's talk about Meghan. Not rumors, not mind reading, but patterns. Meghan Markle has consistently positioned herself as a power partner, not a background spouse. From royal engagements to Netflix projects, she has favored visibility, control of narrative, and symbolic leadership roles. So when Harry's most emotionally loaded platform subtly removes him from center stage, it doesn't just affect him, it affects their shared brand identity. Invictus wasn't just Harry's project, it was one of the last remaining spaces where the couple enjoyed near-universal goodwill. Losing dominance there is not minor. It's strategic. What makes this situation even more striking is how quietly it was done. No dramatic announcement. No public confrontation. Just a restructured hosting format and a clear message: Invictus is moving forward without relying on royal celebrity energy. That alone tells you everything. Organizations don't sideline founders publicly unless they believe the audience, in this case veterans and donors, will support the move. And many have. Online feedback from former competitors shows relief that the focus may finally return to service members rather than speeches and camera angles. And here's the hard truth critics keep circling back to: Meghan's presence has always polarized Invictus in a way Harry's never did alone. Before their marriage, Harry was widely viewed as authentic within military circles. Afterward, perception shifted. Not universally but noticeably. Some veterans felt the games were becoming a stage for celebrity rehabilitation rather than collective healing. That perception, fair or not, matters deeply to a nonprofit dependent on trust. Boards respond to perception faster than publicists ever can. This is why calling Meghan furious isn't about emotional gossip, it's about strategic frustration. Because influence was lost without a fight. No rebuttal. No counternarrative. No dramatic victim storyline. And if there's one thing Meghan has consistently leaned on, it's narrative control. This time, Invictus didn't give her one. They simply moved on. That kind of institutional indifference is far more damaging than criticism. Notice also what didn't happen. There was no public resistance from Harry. No emotional speech reclaiming the mission. No warning shots fired through friendly media. That silence suggests acceptance or resignation. And if Harry has accepted a reduced role, that creates a new dynamic inside the marriage. Because Invictus was always his, not hers. And yet its visibility benefited them both. When that benefit shrinks, pressure follows. The bigger picture here is unavoidable. The Sussex brand is slowly losing anchor points. Spotify is gone. Royal duties are gone. Public sympathy is fractured. Invictus was supposed to be untouchable. The fact that its leadership felt confident enough to rebalance power tells you the cultural winds have shifted. Meghan doesn't need to scream publicly for this to sting. Strategic silence from institutions is often the most devastating response of all. And let's be clear, Invictus didn't reject Harry. They outgrew dependency on him. That distinction matters. But symbolically, it hits just as hard. Especially for a couple whose public positioning relies heavily on relevance, leadership, and moral authority. When one of the last uncontested moral platforms quietly reduces your role, that's not just organizational housekeeping. That's a statement. So where does this leave Meghan Markle? Not defeated but boxed in. The Invictus move limits future leverage. It reduces visual dominance. It shifts the story back to veterans, where criticism of celebrity presence becomes harder to dismiss. And for a woman who has always understood the power of being seen, that is a loss far deeper than any headline would admit. This isn't about hatred. It's about consequence. Institutions adapt. Brands evolve. And when the spotlight moves not with noise, but with intention, it reveals who still holds influence, and who is being politely asked to step aside. Invictus has spoken. And this time, it didn't need Meghan's approval.